My backyard was constantly used as a shortcut, with strangers cutting through like it was a public walkway. A note was left on my fence saying, "It's just a faster route. Don't be so selfish." So I installed motion-activated sprinklers and watched from my window as a group got soaked while running through. The next morning, a final note arrived. "Fine, we'll go around." My grass stayed dry, and so did my peace. I've lived in my house on the north side of Chicago for 11 years. It's a quiet street, lined with small brick homes. Nothing fancy, but it's mine. I worked years to afford this place. One of the reasons I bought this house was because of the backyard. It's not huge, but it's just enough. I've got a little patch of grass, a small garden, and a wooden fence enclosing it. It's where I go to unwind, grill on the weekends, read, drink coffee in the morning. It's my spot, or at least it was. About 6 months ago, I started noticing something weird. Every now and then, I'd see movement out the back window. Not squirrels or raccoons, people, walking straight through my yard, like it was a sidewalk. At first I thought I was seeing things. I'm not some paranoid guy, but then it kept happening. At 7 a.m., some guy in a hoodie and backpack. At 5 p.m., a woman in scrubs cutting diagonally across the yard. Teenagers after school, walking fast like they were trying to avoid being noticed, but not fast enough. It wasn't just 1 or 2 people. It became routine, 2 or 3 times a day, then 5, then whole groups. Turns out, behind my backyard is another street. There's no alley, just a row of fences. My yard is in the middle. To walk around the block would take 5 or 6 extra minutes. I guess for some people, those 5 minutes were just too much. I didn't say anything at first. I thought it'd blow over. Maybe it was just construction nearby, or one neighbor letting friends through. But it kept getting worse. And it wasn't just walking anymore. People were talking, laughing, stomping right through my garden bed. They left trash, cigarette butts. One guy even had the nerve to sit on my patio chair like it was his porch while talking on the phone. I put up a small private property, "Do not enter" sign near the gate. It disappeared in 2 days. So I printed out a bigger one, bold red letters. Zip-tied it to the fence. That one lasted 4 days. Torn down, ripped clean off. At this point, I was pissed. Not just because they were trespassing, but because they clearly knew they were doing something wrong and didn't care. They were actively removing signs trying to stop them. I tried talking to a couple of them. One time, I stepped outside as a group of high schoolers were halfway through the yard. "Hey, this is private property," I said. Calm, but firm. One of the kids shrugged. "It's just faster, man." "That's not the point," I said. "You're not supposed to be here." "We're not hurting anything," he said, without even slowing down. "It's just grass." I wanted to lose it, but I kept my cool. I figured maybe if I started being more visible, people would stop. So I started leaving my back light on at night. Stood on the porch with a cup of coffee in the mornings. Watched from the window in the evenings. Didn't help. If anything, it got worse. One night, I saw someone literally help their kid climb over the fence. I wish I was joking. Then came the note. One morning, I walked out to check on the garden, and there it was, taped to the inside of my fence. Bold black marker on notebook paper. "It's just a faster route. Don't be so selfish." Selfish. Selfish. I don't usually get angry easily, but I stood there shaking. You break into someone's yard, ruin their plants, litter, ignore signs, and I'm the selfish one? I wasn't even mad at one specific person anymore. I was mad at the entire mindset. Like people just thought I was some faceless property owner who didn't matter. Just a yard to cut across. Not a real person with a home. So I stopped being nice about it. I looked up city ordinances first, just to make sure. According to Chicago's municipal code, it's trespassing the moment someone enters a fenced yard without permission. No gray area. No, it's just grass. It's illegal. Plain and simple. I didn't want to call the cops over something like this. I hate that it even got to that point. So I started researching deterrents. That's when I discovered motion-activated sprinklers. These things are meant to keep deer and raccoons out of gardens. But they work on anything that moves. They're hooked up to a hose, and when they sense motion, they fire a solid jet of water for a few seconds, loud and sudden. Perfect. I ordered 2 of them. Fast shipping. When they arrived, I tested them in the front yard to make sure they worked. Then I set them up in the back, one on each side of the yard, angled so the sensors covered the walk-through path. I waited. The first night was quiet. But around 6:30 the next morning, it happened. I was sipping coffee at the kitchen table when I saw 3 people hop the fence. 2 teens and a guy in business casual, probably walking to the L train. They walked fast, not even noticing the devices. Then PSSHHHHD. They were hit. Water sprayed hard. One guy yelped and ran. The girl screamed. They stumbled and slid on the grass trying to get out. It was beautiful. The next morning, a different group. Same result. Screams, water, panic, wet feet. I didn't say a word to anyone. Just sat there watching, day after day. I kept a tally. 11 soakings in the first week. Then it slowed. Fewer people came. Some tried to sneak through, got hit, and I never saw them again. Word must have gotten around. But I wasn't done yet. Not even close. Because the second week, I got another note. This one was soggy, taped to the outer gate instead of the inside. This is ridiculous. You could have just said something. You'll regret being petty. So now I'm petty and apparently threatening them by using water. Okay. I made copies of the sign this time. Private property, sprinklers active, trespassers will get wet. Posted them clearly. No way they could say they didn't know. Some of the regulars started trying to run through. One guy brought a trash bag to shield himself. Got sprayed anyway. This went on for 3 weeks. So the sprinklers were working. Almost too well. After about a month, the traffic through my backyard slowed to a trickle. The note stopped. The trash stopped. I thought maybe it was finally over. It wasn't. One Saturday morning, I was trimming the hedges when I saw something weird, muddy footprints on top of my garden bed. I followed them with my eyes and saw they led to the fence, where a big piece of it was broken off. Not kicked down, not fallen. Sawn. Yeah. Someone took a freaking saw to my fence. They cut out a section just big enough to climb through, then tried to wedge it back into place so it looked normal from a distance. I walked over, pulled it loose, and just stared at it in disbelief. It had been cleanly sliced. Probably at night. Probably when I was sleeping. This wasn't just lazy shortcut behavior anymore. This was planned. Someone was pissed that their shortcut got wet and decided to escalate. They wanted back in, and now they were trying to do it in a sneakier way. My first instinct was to call the cops. But I paused. What could I really say? Hi, someone cut a hole in my fence to sneak through my yard faster? Would they fingerprint my fence slats? Doubt it. I fixed the section, reinforced it with brackets, and installed a game cam. Motion activated. Night vision. Battery powered. Hidden under the birdhouse. It pointed straight at that section of the fence. 2 days later, I got footage. 11:42 p.m. A dude in a hoodie walks up, checks the fence, pulls at it. Then he kneels down, pulls out a flashlight, and starts unscrewing the bracket. He had tools. He was being quiet. He was careful. He was also completely visible on camera. Face, hands, clothes, everything. I didn't recognize him, but I had what I needed. I made a bunch of stills from the video, printed them out, and taped them to the outside of my fence with a sign. Caught on camera. Trespasser number 12. Try it again, and this goes to the cops. I left one copy at the edge of the sidewalk where the shortcut began, right where people like to hop the curb. That night, someone tore it down, so I put up 5 more. The next day, the sprinkler closest to the fence was smashed. Bent sideways. Looked like someone hit it with a bat. I had a backup. I installed it. I also added a solar-powered floodlight that triggers when it senses motion. Now, anytime someone enters that side of the yard, the place lights up like a baseball stadium. That's when things really blew up. A couple of teenagers came through one afternoon, got sprayed, and slipped in the mud. One of them dropped their phone. I picked it up, dried it off, and scrolled through to the lock screen. There was a name, Mikey's iPhone. I left it on the back porch in a Ziploc bag and posted a sign again. Mikey dropped his phone while trespassing. Come get it. Your picture is on camera too. An hour later, a woman banged on my front door. Mid-40s, red in the face. You took my son's phone, she snapped. I stood there calmly. Your son was in my yard. That's trespassing. He was just walking home from school. Through private property. It's just a shortcut. He's a good kid. Good kids don't sneak through someone's yard, damage fences, and break sprinklers. Her voice went up an octave. You're making this harder than it needs to be. Just let people walk through. What's the big deal? At this point I realized something. She was probably one of the people who had written the notes. I handed her the Ziploc bag. You should be thanking me for not filing a report. She grabbed it and stormed off. That night, someone egged my fence. That was the last straw. I bought a second game cam. Then a third. I put one facing the yard, one on the alley, and one facing the sidewalk out front. I went full surveillance mode. If they wanted a war over a shortcut, they were going to get it. 3 days later, I got footage of Mikey and a couple of his friends sneaking into my backyard at night again. This time, they didn't just walk through. They were actively trying to take down one of the cameras. Didn't succeed. But it told me something. They weren't done. So I started tracking patterns. When they came. Who came. What they were wearing. I made a binder. Yeah, I know it sounds nuts. But it was the only way to keep track. And that's when I spotted something important. The majority of people cutting through weren't just neighbors or kids. They were people heading to a specific apartment building 2 streets over. One that backed up right behind my property. I started noticing the same faces. One guy in a tan coat. A woman with a bright purple duffel. A kid with an orange backpack. They weren't just passing through randomly. They were using my yard as a permanent walking route. Like it was part of their GPS. I did some digging. That apartment complex? Known for being poorly managed. No working buzzer system. Long walk to the train station. Zero security. People cut through because they knew no one would stop them there. And now they were trying to expand that logic onto my yard. Not happening. But I needed more than footage now. I needed noise. So I bought one more tool, a motion-activated alarm speaker. Loud as hell. Every time someone triggered it, it would blast a pre-recorded message. You are trespassing. This property is under video surveillance. Leave immediately. I installed it right by the broken fence area. You want to see people run? The first time it went off, the guy literally fell trying to climb back over the fence. Another group got caught at night and sprinted off like raccoons under a spotlight. But here's the thing. Some of them are getting smarter. I think they're watching my house now, timing their runs, maybe even trying to map out blind spots. The binder's getting thicker, and I'm not done. Still no cops involved. Not yet, but I'm building a case. I'm thinking about mailing flyers to the apartment complex next. Maybe something like, private yards are not public property. Trespassing equals fines plus criminal record. All incidents recorded. Next stop, police. This isn't over, but the game has changed. About a week after the alarm speaker went up, things quieted down. No new trespassers. No broken equipment. No trash. It almost felt too calm. I figured maybe the message finally sunk in. Maybe Mikey's mom told her neighbors. Maybe the sprinklers and cameras finally scared people off. Then I got a letter in the mail. Not handwritten. Not anonymous. Certified. It was from a lawyer. At first, I thought it was junk mail. Some random promo. But when I opened it, my stomach dropped. It was a cease and desist. Apparently, I was being formally warned for unreasonable hostility and endangerment of community members due to my use of surveillance, alarms, and aggressive water devices. I laughed out loud. Aggressive. Water. Devices. I read it again, slower. It was real. Stamped. Signed. Dated. Turns out someone from that apartment building had a lawyer in the family. The letter didn't demand money or threaten court. Yet, but it claimed I was creating unsafe conditions for foot traffic and endangering minors. They were trying to flip the script. Make me the bad guy. They were trying to say I was a danger to people who were actively breaking into my yard. I brought the letter to a friend of mine who's a retired cop. He laughed too, but then said something that stuck with me. Don't play defense. You need to go on offense before someone tries to make this worse. So that's exactly what I did. First, I went to the local police precinct, not to report trespassers, yet, but to ask what my rights were. I brought photos, video stills, copies of the notes, a printed copy of the lawyer letter. The officer I spoke with looked through everything and just nodded. This is textbook trespassing. You're well within your rights, he said. If they keep this up, press charges. Don't hesitate. I left with a business card and a clear green light. That weekend, I wrote up a formal complaint. Every incident, every camera still, every note. Then I did something better. I mailed copies of the report to the apartment building's management office. The twist? I found out that complex had recently been fined for not having safe sidewalks or lighting. So I added this line. Your tenants are illegally crossing private property to avoid walking on your own sidewalks. I will pursue legal action if it continues. A few days later, a sign went up on their back gate. Do not trespass on neighboring yards. Violators will be reported. But not everyone got the message. Because Mikey came back. I saw him on the cam, creeping through the yard at night. He had a flashlight and was walking slow, like he was looking for something. Then he stopped under the floodlight, turned to face the camera, and held up a piece of paper. He taped it to the lens. Next morning, I went out to check. The paper just said, try me. That was it. No name. No signature. Just 2 words in thick black marker. So I did. I went back to the precinct, filed a formal trespassing report, and gave them Mikey's name. The cops said they'd send someone to talk to the family. But here's the next twist, and it shocked even me. When the officer went by to follow up, Mikey wasn't there. He'd been kicked out of school a week prior for behavioral issues and had been staying somewhere else. Not at home. Not in that complex. Which meant that note, that late night visit, wasn't Mikey. Someone else was in on it. Someone knew the cameras, knew the setup, knew Mikey's name, and wanted to use it. Now I had a different problem. I wasn't just dealing with random trespassers anymore. This was personal. Once I realized the last note wasn't from Mikey, I got more serious. Someone else was sneaking into my backyard and trying to mess with me. They knew I had cameras. They knew I'd go looking. And they wanted me to think it was that kid. Which means this wasn't about shortcuts anymore. This was personal. So I went full chess mode. First, I made sure all my cameras were still running floodlight cam, fence cam, alley cam. Then I bought one more, small and wireless, and hid it inside a hollow bird feeder I hung on a tree. That one caught sound too. Second, I set up a cheap motion sensor near the broken fence area. Not a sprinkler. Not an alarm. Just something that sent a buzz to my phone when it detected movement. I wanted to catch them in the act. And after 4 nights of nothing, it finally paid off. 2:17 a.m. My phone buzzed. I slid out of bed, peeked out the window, and sure enough, someone was crouched by the fence. Not Mikey. An adult. Tall, wearing gloves, hoodie pulled up tight, holding what looked like a screwdriver. He was trying to disable the floodlight. I stayed quiet, didn't turn on any lights. Just watched. He worked fast, unscrewed the light casing, clipped a wire, then moved toward the camera next to the gate. But what he didn't know, I had added a second floodlight, hidden under the patio cover. The second he stepped forward, boom, it lit him up like a crime show. He froze. For just a second. Then sprinted toward the fence. But not before the hidden feeder cam caught a clear shot of his face. I knew him. His name was Gary. Lived 2 houses down. I'd seen him around, always wearing headphones, always walking his dog. Quiet guy. Never spoke. Never waved. Apparently Gary didn't like my cameras. Apparently Gary wanted his shortcut back. Now he was trespassing, damaging property, sneaking into my yard in the middle of the night, and framing a teenager to throw me off. I had everything I needed. The next morning, I printed 3 stills, one of him cutting the light, one of his face under the beam, and one of him running with the screwdriver still in hand. I put the photos in an envelope with a typed note. Hi Gary. Next time you want to destroy something on my property, at least wear a mask. Smiley face. I dropped the envelope on his porch, then walked back home like it was just another Tuesday. By 4 p.m., the police were at my door. But not to arrest me. To ask if I wanted to press charges. Gary had called them, claiming I was harassing him. I told the officer everything. Showed the photos, the damage, the old notes, the sprinkler parts, the video. The cop just nodded and said, looks like we've got it all right here. Gary got cited for trespassing, destruction of property, and attempted vandalism. And because I had enough documentation, the case stuck. He also got a restraining order. But that's not the satisfying part. Here's the best part. About a month after that, the apartment complex behind me started construction on their lot. Apparently someone higher up saw the reports I'd mailed and realized the tenants needed an actual path to the train station. So they cleared a side lane on their own property and paved it with gravel. Added lights. A proper gate. Shortcut problem? Gone. And Gary? He put up a 6-foot privacy fence around his backyard, like he was the victim now. I still water my lawn every morning. The sprinklers still sit in the grass, quiet, but ready. The cameras still blink when you walk past. And me? I drink my coffee in peace. No more footsteps. No more notes. No more trespassers. Just grass. And silence. And one very satisfied homeowner.